I'm Coach Joel Lincoln, and welcome to the Feet on the Court podcast, where we are covering youth and grassroots hoops with two guys that are on the court every weekend. And this past weekend, our guy, new guy to the Game Shots basketball family, Tony Sterling, going to be a weekly co-host here, and he is fresh off of EYBL session 1 with Houston Hoops. So first of all, Tony, how'd you guys do over the weekend?
This being my first time, coaching and being a part of the Nike EYBL session, it's pretty intense. And me seeing all the kids that's in high school now and, seeing them while they were younger, coming to the Chris Paul, national middle school combine and stuff like that was, kind of surreal, to be honest, because, those kids were little when they were in middle school. Now you see them towering over you and stuff like that or whatever. But it was my first year coaching AU with Houston Hoops 15 U team. We went 0-4 because you play two games. I mean, you play one game on Friday, then you play two games on Saturday. Then it's pool play. But we managed to come out, winless and stuff like that. I think it's a great learning experience for most of the kids, including the kids that are with Houston Hoops. We got a lot to improve on, before we go back to the second session in Dallas next month and stuff like that. So some of the things that I got from it is just the intensity of the players, the intensity of the atmosphere. Like, as far as the intensity of the atmosphere, you seeing pretty much every college head coach that you can think of is there. John Shire, that's with Duke, Jawan Howard with Michigan, um, Coach Musselman with Arkansas, you name it, they were there, and you seen like prep school coaches, Link Academy's coach, Bill Armstrong, as far as the coaches that coach with all the different AU teams that I've worked, Chris Paul, middle school camp with, John Lucas, Made Hoops, Crossroads Elite. Shout out to my guy Steve Shelton with Team CP3 and John Adams or whatever. Shout out to my guy Reno that's with Mac Irvin. All those guys. Like, so it was. I wasn't a stranger there this weekend. I mean, this past weekend with all those guys because I know them, ran into them. We keep in contact with throughout the year and stuff like that. So it was pretty good.
Yeah,
Got a chance
man.
to bring. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, shout out to Steve and John going 4-0 in the 17s. They got that golden ticket all the way to the Peach Jam, so that was good for them. Go ahead, man. Yeah, no, I know the gym was full. I was following it on social media. I was at the crib here in Charlotte, following Team United a little bit. But yeah, man, that CP3 crew rolls deep, and obviously, yeah, with the amount of talent you guys had in the gym. And yeah, I was just thinking, I just got off the phone with Fuge and telling him about, Cameron Boozer, rising stars. And then we had DJ Bayanesta last year. And some of these guys, man, like they could be playing for the G League Ignite yesterday. So,
Yeah.
So you guys went 0-4, and who'd y'all play?
The first who I have to go back to the first game who we played. We played Team Durant the first game. They had a really good guard or whatever. I had actually wrote his name down or whatever if I can find it.
I was gonna say, yeah, obviously I know you're there. You got eyes and ears talking to people watching the games. And yeah, man, like you said, you've been at this now, just in all those events he just names, ladies and gentlemen. He's worked at those, and this is a guy, Denham Springs finest. Shout
Yeah,
out Coach Cab and the Horn Jackets. Yeah, man. So who you guys kicked it off, and you said you were Team Durant. Obviously
played Durant. They're well coached, very well coached. they had a really good left-handed guard. I had it wrote down. I can't find it right now, but
We got you. We'll definitely in the recap, and we'll make sure as we move into the next ones we rocking. So Team Durant caught one there, well coached. What were they
yeah,
running
yeah.
offensively, defensively? Sitting a lot of man zone.
Motion, pretty much motion, motion offense, but like defense, they was pretty much in your face. Even if it was half court or full court, man, the kids were ready. That Saturday morning we played the Night Riders, which they were pretty huge. They didn't have nobody under 6'2" or whatever, so we was a little undermanned or whatever.
That
Then
15U, they had nobody under 6'4", you say?
6'2".
6'2", excuse me. So 15U. And
Yeah,
what's your starting line for Houston Hoops at 15U? What's that looking like in terms of how tall are your guards, how big are your bigs?
I'll say the front line 6'7", 6'6", 6'3", 6'3", and 5'8". And
I know.
in that league, in that the EYBL, when you under 6 feet, you gotta be special. Like you gotta be like a Derrick Rose of the NBA. Like you gotta be super athletic. You gotta have some dog in you or whatever.
A
When you
lot of
that
dog in you if
when
you're under six
Yeah,
foot, and a
yeah,
skill or
yeah,
two to get you on the court. And yeah,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah, yeah. But it was a good experience for those guys. We had two eighth graders on the team. Ahmad Hudson, that's from Ruston, Louisiana. He's 6'5". He played two-sport athlete or whatever, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people will hear about his name pretty, in the future or whatever. But he did pretty well. Christian Brooks, ninth grader from Zachary High School outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Tyshawn Duncan from Alexandria High in Alexandria, Louisiana, or whatever. So those guys, they got a bright future ahead of them. I think the best prospect out of all of them was probably uh, Tyshawn Duncan, 6'7" kid that probably ended up being 6'8", 6'9". Good rim runner, shot blocker. He can pick and pop, make the open three or whatever. He didn't have to demand the ball to, be effective on offense and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I think with a really, really good point guard and good supporting cast, he's gonna thrive or whatever. Like he's a good role player, really good
How
role player.
how many rebounds? Obviously, we could probably look at the official stats. How well does he rebound? How high does his motor run?
I thought he could rebound a little more. I thought he could get 10 rebounds a game, which that was something that he has to develop because this is his first year
Mm-hmm.
playing in the EYBL. But you got these other guys that's the same height as him, and you don't have that type of height when you're playing in high school. I mean, when you play high school basketball in Louisiana. So that was another thing he had to grasp, real quick. That's the thing in the EYBL.
Instantly.
You do not have time to try to contribute or try to catch on to stuff. Either you got to learn on the fly, and it's kind of like in the NBA when these rookies and stuff come in, like when they before they play summer in the summer league um, deal during July, they got to grasp a lot, whatever you got to learn on the go or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what separates the good from the great. Like what you doing in between. Are you looking at film and stuff like that? Because every game, I mean, you can go back and look at the games from this past weekend. Like the games are online
Mm-hmm.
instantly after or whatever. You can look at everybody's game. Like then they got stats and stuff like that. So the film don't lie. You know
Mm-hmm.
what you see that you need to work on is it's right there in the film. So but I think the intensity of all the players when they played, that was a that's one thing that I got from it this past weekend, like how intense the players were, because it was a 15U game, 16U game, and of course the 17U game was going to, the older kids, so they're going to be, competitive, whatever. Because all the kids know each other and they friendly to one another, So so it's sometimes, so the in between of that, they want to show each other how good they are and stuff like that. So you still see the competitive spirit from back in the day, kind of like when we played and stuff. Except we didn't talk to each other. We didn't laugh. Like we walk by you, give you a little hand slap before the game. But these kids know each other. They friendly, stuff like that, which is not wrong. It's just today's generation of what they doing and stuff like that. But
Yeah, no, I think
it
with the
was
social media, it's a lot easier. But I think two things. Number one, just to comment on the intensity. I was talking to Ed Cook with Team United just last night, talking about their weekend, and they went 3-2. His team did, and he just was talking about, just as there's one or two, three, four plays in a game, whether it be a missed free throw in the first quarter, you just don't pick up the ball, give up a transition layup, mess around, get beat on a back cut. Just, and Coach Havens was big on there's 4 or 5 possessions are going to determine the game. Unfortunately, you just don't know which 4 or 5 that is. And it sounds
yeah,
like in the EYBL,
yeah.
obviously, yeah. I mean, you're picking up stuff on the fly. Obviously, there's a ton of talent, and especially at that 15U, depending on their previous experience on some sort of circuit, whether that would be Chris Paul Middle School Combine, Rising Stars, of course, made hoops events. Like if they're not familiar, just to walk into that play, if you're the best player, obviously in Alexandria or one of those towns, and that's your first time going up against something, just to flip the switch and to I don't want to say get punched in the mouth, but it's right there, and it's and if I didn't, my game's not in my bag, I got to have that thing ready immediately from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
So who are some of the players, as you guys only played 4 games over the weekend, as you're, I'm sure, watching games, talking, bumped into the who's who and this, that, and the other. But who are some of the players you really enjoyed watching play? So maybe a guy that you hadn't heard of or wasn't on your radar that maybe you saw. We'll start easiest one. Who are the best, your best 3 players, 3 to 5. We'll go, yeah, best 3 to 5 players you saw this weekend. And we'll start at 17s. Or I guess what ages do you feel like you watched the most over the weekend?
I pretty much watch every age, but I'll tell you a diamond in the rough is Justin Begg with the 17U Houston Hoops team. I mean the kid pretty poised. He a old school point guard, like he like Baron Davis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean he athletic. He get the ball to the right spots. I mean, he knows what the number one player in the country does on his team, and his name is Trey Johnson. So he know when to give him the ball. He know when to, you know, put the guys in the right spacing. Know when to go, how to go off a pick and roll. No, and even the thing with him on defense, he knows how to get through a screen. Like he know how to fight through screens,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Just a humble kid, and I've known him since 2021 of the CP3 Rising Stars camp or whatever. Shout out to his father, Christian Bay, for giving me an opportunity to be a part of the Houston Hoops organization or whatever. So but I think 17s, I mean, of course we can say Trey Johnson, the number one player in the country, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He can get his shot anytime. And he don't have to take 15 to 20 shots a game to be efficient.
What do you
That's
think
one
makes
thing
him
I
the
noticed about him. And,
What do you think makes him the best? He's a consensus player, number
um,
one player. So what do you think separates him from the guys below him? Because obviously there's to state the
um,
obvious, there's only number one, right? So what separates him? Because
um,
I think overall it's a solid class top to I think so. What do you got? So what separates him
um,
between the next handful of guys behind him?
um, he's fundamentally sound. Like he can shoot, he can dribble, he can pass. On defense, he plays hard or whatever. Like for instance, with his length, is not as he's not as long. he's 6'5", but he probably got like a 6'8" wingspan. I don't know. I mean, I really
Those
don't
aren't
know, but
exact, but that just from your eye,
yeah,
you've watched a
yeah,
lot of hoop.
yeah. But he knows how to use his speed, he knows how to use his length. Like he don't gamble, like whatever you give him, that's what he gonna take, and he know how to capitalize on the simple things, like offensively, defensively.
Hmm.
Um, I'll say 16s. I was kind of mad because Darren Peterson from Ohio, he wasn't there. He's actually playing with an Adidas team, but I seen him at the USA mini camp during the Final Four. Then I got an opportunity to work. Um, 16s. I mean, of course, we all know there's only two guys, and those are the only two guys I watch. Is Cooper Flag had 52, and Cameron Boozer, which I think is a pro right now. You know, I seen all them guys in the Chris Paul camp or whatever. So I think hands down the best high school player in America. He's a sophomore. Is Cameron Boozer, hands down, hands
What
down.
makes you put him above Cooper Flag?
If he want to go get a point, it can be a three. He can dribble the ball up and bring the ball up court and drive it in. If he want his teammates to score, you know, he can set them up like he. Then like the size, he's massive. Like his wingspan is crazy. Like like he got the right. He got his jabs are on point. Like he's a complete player for a high school player. I'm not saying he's LeBron, but LeBron was in high school, but he's probably the most complete player I've seen in a long time. That's
Hmm.
that's I mean that's saying a lot, and
Yeah, no, I mean,
just
shoot,
watching
go ahead,
just
watching him
watching him
play.
this week. Yeah, this weekend is, man, the sky the limit for him. I think last year he won a state championship in high school. Then in the EYBL with the Night Riders, they won the Peace Jam. I think they won a state championship this year in high school. I think he's gonna do the same thing, this year because he got the right type of guys around him and stuff like that. Like good role players, the team gets along. They into the game or whatever.
How big are his hands?
15.
How like does he have massive hands?
Oh yes, I mean you're not getting the ball from him. When he go
If
for a
there,
rebound.
if you guys played him and it was your scout, what would you try to do to disrupt his flow as a dominant player? What would you try to do? Or do you think would be an area that, hey, this is where we could find an advantage on this extremely talented and skilled player?
I
I
I'll
mean, do you
try to
think if
keep
you
a
trap it, would
body
he
on
just
him.
make the right pass out? If we're trapping pick and rolls, I mean, is it gonna just gonna be consistent right play? Is he gonna have some solutions? I'm gonna be honest, I did not watch the live streams yet. But I did watch a handful of their high school games, and I mean, I'm not disagreeing with a single thing you're saying. I think yeah, he's elite in terms of just his pace, the way he can control the game. Um, and yeah, to your point of if he wants to get something done,
Mhm.
you're gonna have to run a handful of guys at him to make sure you know you make him do something he's, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but get it out of his hands. From the limited I've watched, I think would be the biggest takeaway I got.
You can't take whatever you take away from him. He's gonna find something. He's gonna find something else that he can capitalize on. You try to take away the post play by fronting him. He gonna tell him to swing the ball. Then he gonna know try to put his butt on you, and bam, he's open. That's just post play.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to pick him up full court, he gonna use himself as a screener. If he get the rebound, he gonna bring it up. Like he has no blemishes in his game. I would like to see him go through some adversity before he, you know, especially before he go pro. I think any any good player needs that. He need to go through some adversity. That way he can, you know, see how he can fight through that. Because when your mindset is not challenged, especially at that age, you kind of get spoiled or whatever. But you can't blame him because he's so talented or whatever. But I want him to go through some adversity
Yeah, we're
before
in an
he,
interesting time right now with hoops where there's a lot of players that are, obviously Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Bronny's about to be going through it here in the next handful of years. Cameron
mhm.
Booth's going to be
And
going in
that
a
kid
handful of
love
years.
basketball.
And I
That
think it's
that
going to be the
that
first time, obviously. I mean, you got Matt Barnes' kids coming up. You got Gilbert Arenas' kid coming up. You got, I mean, I think there has to be something to having somebody, being a child of a professional athlete just in general. Obviously, there's built-in advantages, but I think, man, like, who do you think has done it best? Obviously, it's like different situation with Steph Curry coming from Davidson. I think that's unique. Um, Klay Thompson obviously was a lottery pick as well. Washington State, always been talented, but just from that, I think there's a big advantage to have somebody that's actually done what you want to do at the crib. And if you got questions, you can ask them. Obviously, it's still your dad, but something that, from a young age, obviously showing you, hey, this is how you do it. Probably we're in locker rooms, seeing how this is how it was, shooting, all that stuff. So go ahead. You say you're about to go 16s or you're about to go 15s?
well, 15 is obvious with them too, because AJ DeBois, he plays with the expressions team 17s. So he doesn't play 15. He plays up with the 17s. And then you got Tyron Stokes that play with Vegas Elite. He plays up on the 17s team that Vegas Elite has. AJ, I know his dad real well. We always run into each other and stuff like that. And AJ is a very humble kid. He works out. He don't care what type of drill or how the atmosphere is. He always gonna work hard. Always, always. So I think last year during September they came to Maine Hoops in Dallas at the Drive Nation facility, and John Lucas had his camp in Houston, and all the really good kids were at the John Lucas camp, and AJ was at the Maine Hoops camp, and the talent one wasn't up to the level that he was at, but he was still working hard, whatever, and that impressed me. And he always it was 8 o'clock in the morning. He was always energetic, like and that and I told his dad, I said, man, that kid gonna make it just because his mindset. He always working hard. Kyron, I've never been around him, but we got a very good friend in Yoruba Harrison that has known the kid, for a long time, and he averaged a double double this past weekend at the EYBL. He made it look easy from what I've seen. He made it look easy.
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed with watching him. So I pretty much watched all the good kids, but I think like next time when we go to Dallas, I'm gonna watch. No, I want to see which kids stand out or whatever. But no, I take that back. It's I don't know if JJ Andrews. He's from Little Rock, Arkansas, but he played with Brad Bill Elite. And I actually talked to his mom today, Janetta, just to you know um, tell her how happy I was, how good he was doing. He has great parents or whatever, and that kid always humble too, because last summer in Chicago, I had a chance of having a team, and he was on it or whatever, and I didn't know who he was, or whatever. All I know is he worked hard. He never complained. He was always yes sir, no sir, stuff like that. But sometimes when you go to these camps, you building relationships and stuff like that, and they keep in contact, especially on social media and stuff like that. So kind of good, like when you see the kids with very good parents and stuff or whatever. And I can say that about JJ. He got some really good parents or whatever.
Hmm.
But I think with the EYBL in general is I think
I
the
think the
main thing that go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I think the main thing, the reason, especially on this level with AAU in general, and I ain't saying this to knock AAU, but I think this is the reason why the transfer portal started was because of AAU. Everybody trying to find a quick fix, and if they can't get that success that they want, they'll go switch up a team instead of just like you're on the highest level possible. I mean, you're a good player. Why not just like for example, get better in practice. You're playing against the best. I mean, your teammates, all your teammates good. Like go through some adversity. Don't run away from adversity because it's on the other side of when you go through adversity, always something good that's gonna happen or whatever. But
Hmm. Yeah,
like
I think
it's go ahead.
I think the biggest, yeah, the transfer portal. I think there's I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. If you're transferring adversity, that shit's gonna follow you. So, but also I think the transfer portal is good for the player that they. I've got a few friends that they Lindsey Smith, who she was a player at Wisconsin. She was a top 100 girl out of Iowa. She was on, by the time she was a sophomore, she had some injuries. She was on her third head coach. And I think
Mm,
the thing with the transfer portal that does is if your kid, if you go on a run, your coach bounces. And I think LSU, the coach did the same thing, bringing the player of the year from the OVC down. And I think, the transfer portal, if you're transferring adversity or, a missed evaluation, maybe you just went and you figured out I ain't good enough to play at this level and I'm never going to get any burn. And I think there's some real, but I think there's also hey, we're going to stick with it. This is going to mold me into a better human being. And 5 years back, that coach that I stuck with, who was hard on me, who coached me, who loved me, who made me, really mold me in that young man moving in or
mm,
young woman moving out of college. I think that gets lost. The educational piece, I think, gets lost. I mean, the percentages of professional athletes, unless you're going to switch to pickleball or something, are going to remain where they're at. I mean, there's only so many professional leagues, and the women's game is going to be growing. I think obviously with Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, the WNBA is only going to be getting bigger. But moving forward, I think you have to just make sure that you're on top of your stuff and keeping sure you're getting better as you're at. And if you decide you're going to leave, understand why you're leaving and what you're going to, as you pivot, as you change, as you move, make sure you know why you're making that move and you're not just making that move because that's what feels good right now. And then, 3 months later, 3 years later, 10 years later, you go back and think, and really take an honest look at yourself and say, hey, I shouldn't have done that. And, like I said, to be completely fair, there are absolute chances and reasons to leave a situation. There are plenty of bad coaches and bad programs that do, allow a low standard and are not meeting the expectations of athletes. And I think the good thing for those athletes is now they have that equal opportunity. They don't have to sit out with the 4 year to 4 year to sit out, go D2, go, JUCO, because with the 4 year to 4 year sit out for a year, that no longer exists. I think moving forward with the NIL, that's going to obviously play a big deal into it. And today's not the day to dive into that here in episode 1. But Tony, just final thoughts. What were your main takeaways from your first EYBL session on the bench? Obviously, being there, seeing obviously the maturation of a lot of players you've been seeing for years in the gym, seeing their development. What are some of those takeaways, both for you and for the game, and just from the event as a whole perspective?
um, I think it's just well, my main reason I wanted to get in AU because that's another aspect of the game of basketball that I needed to learn. Because most high school coaches now, they want to fool with AU is this, AU is that, but I want to go in with the understanding mind to learn, both sides. That way you can be, a moderator with all this for people to understand, which I understand it, but just because going up, with the middle school camps and stuff like that I go to, and I see these players and stuff like that. So I already had like a little of knowledge of what was going on, but I just wanted to see how, compared to how we do stuff in high school as far as, discipline, how you coach and stuff like that or whatever. It's similarities there. Um, the only similarities is, the only difference is I think some kids are playing for stats. They're not worrying about wins and losses, you know, and that's the ultimate stat. And you can't worry about stats in the EYBL because you get exposed. The EYBL to me is you either gonna be exposed or you're gonna get exposed. I think I think with our team this past weekend, we got exposed. We got exposed and like if you look at it in a positive way, what you need to work on, when you come back, you want to improve. But the expectations of the EYBL, like you can't worry about improving. Like you gotta win. Everybody want to go to the Peace Jam. This is to me is like a mini NBA. NBA league. Like, and of course, like you're gonna have it's kids in this league that's gonna be in the NBA one day. I hope to coach one day. But that was like one of my main takeaways from it, just from just getting more educated on the AU side of things, and I'm blessed to do it at the highest platform ever with the Nike EYBL team. For Houston Hoops. Like I said, I I salute Christian Bay for giving me the opportunity. But like just growing the game. You've been my guy ever since Snow Valley basketball. I mean Snow Valley Basketball School in Iowa. You know, I always go back to that. Coach Don Showwater. The reason I'm doing all these things is started at Snow Valley Basketball School. You know,
1000%. And yeah, I think the biggest
I,
thing that, I liked what you really said, and obviously coaching the 15s, that's not a developmental because, we're all playing and we don't work. I think you get a couple things. Number one, you get a real dose of reality. And you found out there's
yeah,
better players. As did a lot of teams walking out of those gyms over the weekend. I got to go home and get a lot better. But I
yeah.
think I think you spoke to the mindset of adversity a little bit earlier, and I think that is the biggest thing. Is if I'm 15, and this is one of my favorite stats is, hey, LeBron James wasn't the number one player in the country until he was a junior in high school. There's time for all of us.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's obviously a plethora of examples of that, but just making sure that we keep that as the main thing, especially at the 15U. And obviously it's competitive, and we're not out here, playing for high fives and cookies. Like, we're out here trying to make it to Peach Jam. There's an objective. We're trying to get scholarships, things like that. But also, I mean, you named off your front line of 15-year-olds. And I think,
Hmm.
to say it's the highest platform is 100% correct. I think, just the number of athletes, the number of top recruits, the number of kids that, how elite you have to be. You got kids from Houston Hoops that are from a handful of states. I know that's how it is here too. And dealing with limited practice time, obviously you get teammates that aren't great teammates. You get guys, you
Hmm.
get egos, and, it's a different role for just about everybody. There's only one leading scorer on every team. There's only one
And
best player on
also,
every
yeah,
team.
yeah.
And
And
if you're not
also,
that guy, you got to buy into that new role. And I think that also adds to that adversity. Go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off there.
also this could for coaches too. You can be over your head and then be over your head and coaching in an EYBL. Like you think a kid good, in your area when he get to this, like he better be. he better be pretty good. He better know how to respond to adversity because the Nike EYBL can eat you up and spit you out at the same time.
Yeah, it's gonna be adversity is gonna become knocking at some point, and yeah, and especially if yeah, and I think what comes to mind to that, and I think one thing that I've taken is diving into a little bit of the AAU basketball. I coached for Rose City basketball and Hanny Daoud when I was in Portland, and just in general with the, with that when you are out there playing, there's opportunity too, for a kid that is shows up for the first time hasn't played on some of those elite events in middle school, things like that, and popping onto the scene. There's also kids that are preparing that we all don't know, and maybe one kid does. But to finish that thought, from a coaching perspective, the evaluation part is the biggest thing. As in club basketball, one of the parts I really do enjoy is I've never been the GM, but when you're collecting talent and you're, developing a team, I think the parallels to the NBA. And I think as it's becoming more regional, and I think, I don't know if we're going to go ever to a pure club system, like they have in Europe, but I do think more and more club basketball is going to be growing in different areas. Like, and as I've been at these different events of, talking to kids, some will tell you what school they go to, and most of them just tell you what club they play for. And I think that as kids grow up in this system and the platform grows from made hoops, middle school to moving on to the EYBL in high school. I know Chad and made hoops are launching a whole nother platform with some player evaluations, which, just peeking around on that a little bit last week is very impressive. I think they're doing great work. I'm very curious to see what their high school circuit looks like and how that meshes with the EYBL in terms of, I think the one thing that all those guys do, and I think in general, getting all the talent in the same building is always a priority. And I think that's what's, when it obviously club basketball gets a bad rap for a handful of reasons, some justified, some not justified. You could say a lot of similar things about high school basketball programs, good programs, bad programs, things of that nature. But, as a coach, you got to evaluate the evaluator to a certain extent. And if you to your point, you bring a kid who can't play in there, you're getting exposed a little bit yourself. If that was your guy when you walked in, you make sure you put your arm around that same kid as you walk out. And we got about 30 seconds here. Put one more little bow on here, Tone.
Um, like our guy always say, learn how to learn. Shout out to Pace Lock. Learn how to learn. This is what we love. We still got to continue to learn how to learn. You got to learn how to evolve at all times because the game don't stop, just like life don't stop. So
Stay in the
that's
gym.
what
Yeah,
I
we'll
got.
bring absolutely shout out Coach Lockman, the GOAT, one of the original Snow Valley Basketball School. On the next episode, we will be previewing what the summer is going to look like, where we're going to be. Tone's going to